She's been really sick.
All right, it's 6 o'clock and we're on the air, so we're going to call the meeting to order. And we'll move on to item 2.0, adoption of the agenda.
We have a couple changes.
And we do have an addendum and one little couple changes here. So. Yep, okay, all right, thank you.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded to adopt the agenda and the addendum. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. 3.0, approval of the minutes from the June 21st meeting.
Move to approve.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve those minutes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. 4.0, hearing of requests and suggestions of citizens and organizations. Is there anybody not already on the agenda that needs to address the board? Seeing none and hearing none, we'll move to 5.0, report of the superintendent of schools.
All right, here we go. It is time to do the budget again. And so Tanya is working hard on that and has been for hours and hours, getting things ready. So I needed to let you know that we will exceed the revenue neutral rate. So we've got to let everyone know. We have to let the county know by how much by Wednesday. So we'll get that information to them next Tuesday. This year, Jeff's going to go with us too. We're going to go up to KSDE and visit with Craig and go over the budget like we do every year, just to review. So we've got that coming up on the 26th. Now, at our next board meeting, the way it works with the revenue neutral rate and the hearing, we have to adopt the budget sometime between August the 20th and September the 20th. Our August board meeting is prior to that date. Our board meeting in September is September the 19th. So after we go up and visit with Craig, we'll get our budget out, we'll get it published, run in the paper for those 10 consecutive days. We'll have our budget hearing, our revenue neutral rate hearing, and all of the budget approval on the September the 19th board meeting. That'll also include the needs assessment, which is a new piece this year. Just extra fun stuff. Okay, so we've got that. Now, today was the first day all the secretaries came back in the buildings, so some people will be there to answer the phones. That's exciting. It means school's starting. Our secondary admin came back today as well. So on next Monday, the 25th, our elementary admin will also return. So we're getting geared up for school to start. I know, it's kind of crazy. Also next week on July the 28th, our administrators, our admin team will go to Greenbush for a day of training and planning and a retreat of some sort. So we've got that going on, getting organized and ready. The other thing for you, August the 10th is new teacher orientation. That's important to you because we're having a lunch that we'd like to invite you to at noon that day at the high school community room. So if you would let Amanda know if you're going to be able to attend that day. And that's the day with new teachers that we go over Infinite Campus, we go over Classroom Dojo, we go over Google Classroom, all the tech stuff. We do that PDP toolbox, that professional development points toolbox. That's how they recertify. We show them how to use that. We do some adverse childhood experiences, some social emotional overviews. Then we load our buses and tour the schools. And then our last stop, we visit the crisis shelter and then take the boys and have snow cones. We've done that for a number of years. So that's that day on August the 10th. And then we've blinked and it's August the 15th. And staff is back that day. So that is the first day back for all staff. So a letter will be going out shortly and you'll get one of those letters that'll kind of let you know what the plan is for that week, because then August the 18th is the first day with students. So the only other thing we've got, didn't make it on here, is just an ESSER 3 update. So we are right smack in the middle of secondary review. We made it through primary review. Now we're in secondary review. So they've had some questions and wanted some clarification. We're working to get that completed, to see what's eligible, what's ineligible, what's all of that fun stuff. The other thing is that we have a safe return to schools plan. We've had that's a part of that ESSER 3, and in there it has all of the COVID information, so that if we get to the 1.5% positivity rate, then that triggers all of those additional things like a mask mandate and all of those things. That's still in effect. That was policy. It's looked at every 6 months. So we've got 3 more months and we can bring that up. It'll be time for the regular review, but just so people are aware of that. And so that's what I've got. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay, thank you. Moving to 6.0, report on the July Tri-County Board meeting.
We had a lengthy agenda that we whipped through pretty good shape. Did all those first of the fiscal year items, appointing everyone, approving the KSB recommendations for policies, which we'll be looking at later here today as well. Looked at insurance companies that we deal with, amended the section 125, changed the certified and professional handbook, adopted a mileage of 56 cents, even though it had gone up, we still stayed at 56. Approved a contract for Craig Nursing Services at $40 an hour, but they visit home, students are homebound, and it's it doesn't cost us very much. We don't have a lot of those. Reviewed the contract with SEK, Greenbush for tele SLP services. We approved the TEC student handbook, and then we approved negotiated agreement, the teacher evaluation tool, and salary schedules for the paraprofessionals and the other certified staff members. And if you want those numbers, well, I have them, but it's pretty lengthy.
Any questions? All right, thank you very much. Moving to new business, 7.0, action to approve the consent agenda items for 22-23.
So I would note one change on that, the action on mileage payment for use of personal vehicle. You'd find that it says 56 cents. The state has since gone up, not to meet the federal level, but has gone up to 58.5 cents. So we typically stay with the state of Kansas rate, which is 58.5 cents per mile.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented with the change on mileage.
Second. Any question? Substitute pay remaining at 135. How much did we spend last year on substitutes? Is that part of the consent?
Yeah.
Well, the daily rate of pay is part of the consent, the $135. Off the top of my head, I don't know what we paid for substitutes in total last year.
Okay, so
That would
what
be
I'm
something I'd have
thinking
to look
is, we have 5 permanent subs.
Yes, this
Okay,
year,
some
the
of that-
recommendation is 5.
Some of those funds were used from ESSER to
That
pay
is
for
correct.
subs? Okay, and that money runs out,
In September of 2024.
okay.
So this year, those additional.
They're good, okay.
Yes, those
So-
additional 3 emergency subs, full-time.
And I think Coffeyville's at 150 and we're next maybe?
We are next.
I was just thinking, maybe,
I would recommend that we stay at the 135.
well, I'm recommending that we raise it
Oh,
to
And-
150.
oh. And I would have to go back and figure the cost for that. That wasn't something that I was
I
prepared to do.
it
But I
slipped my
can.
mind when I talked to you earlier. Anyhow.
We are the second highest in the SEK, so at 135. And we really don't compete with the substitutes they have in Coffeyville because it is quite a drive. I think if our neighbors to the south, if their rate had gone up to 150, then we might need to, look to see because we might have some more competition. But typically, wouldn't you say, Jeff?
I think the 135 is actually quite a bit higher than the ones that are in our proximity.
Right.
How often do we actually utilize some non-full-time subs?
Just depends on the day.
Really?
Quite a bit.
Okay.
Quite a bit. Our 5, last year at one point we had 7 full-time subs, and they were busy every day. And so last year there was also the teal sub, that was a temporary emergency license. We had 2 of those substitutes that we used quite regularly as well.
So how many hours a day do they work if they work a full day?
7 hours and 20 minutes, and so then that is typically that's the contract day. Now, that includes 30 minutes for lunch and 40 minutes for a plan time. Oftentimes, we take substitute teachers, and if additional classes need to be covered during a plan time, we'll say, okay, your plan time is third hour. We need you to go and cover this class, third hour. So a lot of times they don't get that additional
They're not
40.
guaranteed a
Or,
plan.
right, they're not guaranteed a 40-minute plan at the elementary level or a 50-minute plan at the secondary.
Because they wouldn't be planning.
Because they don't do it, that is correct. So we attempt to use them somewhere else.
So what does that figure out per hour?
I was just saying, I mean, if you kind of round it to 7 hours, we're less than $20 an hour. So I was thinking that maybe 140 would get them to close to $20 an hour.
I'd be good with that.
Okay, unless somebody has a problem with that, $20 an hour.
I'll amend my motion.
Okay, all right. So we'll change that action to set substitute teacher pay to 140 then.
140, okay.
Any further commentary on that motion? Is there a second?
Second on that one.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve those consent agenda items with the noted changes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. 7.1, action to approve recommended June Casby policy updates.
Okay, and so those were all included in the view in June on the 17th, and then again on July 8th with the notice of the different blanks that we would fill in. So I didn't have any questions from anyone prior to this evening, but if there are any questions, I'll be happy to entertain them now.
Motion to approve the June Casby policy updates.
Second?
Okay, moved and seconded to approve those June Casby policy updates. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. 7.2, first reading of the classified staff handbook for
All
the
right.
following year.
So our classified staff handbook was updated and reviewed last year by the attorneys at KASB. And it reflects any of those. And this is just the first reading. So if you've got questions between now and then, it won't be on the board agenda for approval until the regular August meeting.
Okay, 7.3, the first reading of the negotiated agreement. Now, we are going to move to ratify this so that we can get moving with the agreement that we made with the bargaining unit recently. So while this says first reading, you're going to read it rather quickly, I guess. I guess there were not any changes other than to the compensation package and...
The compensation package and the amount of time in between the start of the duty day, the start of the school day, 1 day a week.
Correct. Okay.
Right, regular step and column.
Yeah,
those
yeah, and so we'll
things, yeah.
discuss that, kind of how that process went, negotiations and executive session, but, so anyways, we'll talk about that again later and revisit this, but just to bring that to your attention, we will be dealing with that later in the agenda. 7.4, discussion and action on staff social media guidelines. So you've got that social media guidelines before you.
Yeah, and this is something that we've had in the district before. It is something that is based on the Kansas State Department on their recommendations, their policies and procedures. So that and Prairie View School District, they had policies, but then they also had these guidelines. Now, we have policy already. We currently have policy regarding social media and all of those things. This is just an additional opportunity for us to make expectations clear for staff, and it is little bitty tiny print. We can make it a little bit bigger. I'd heard that, but.
The only concern I had when I read this is it's a little murky because they are suggestions like avoid insulting others, it's not a directive, which I don't think legally we can do. But as one board member, I would want to make sure that the staff understood that this is some pretty strong language if you read it correctly, in the sense that be careful when you're on social media. It can cause some problems. And if I were still teaching, I would not be friends with any student on Facebook or any other type of social interactive. I am friends with former students, but it could lead to some problems if you're friends with them now. in my opinion.
Does this go in the handbook, like the August 10th handbook that they get
So
of,
it would be handed out at the same time.
and it goes to, what
and
about,
It would go to all staff.
and so, not to call out someone, but like the assistant football coach that just got hired, would he attend that meeting on
Yeah,
August 10th?
Yes,
Okay.
they are invited to attend.
Okay.
Now, a lot of times our Rule 10 folks have other jobs and may
Right.
not be able to attend. However, then the athletic director, assistant principal is responsible for giving them all the information. And they're still required to do all of the required trainings for the state. So they
Okay.
would still get one of these and have to sign a form that says they've seen
The
it.
athletic director meets with all the coaches and
Right.
goes over expectations as well, and this we'll have them include that as
Okay.
well, because I think that's a good point.
And so that's one he sure.
Not that I think,
Right.
I mean, I think he's a phenomenal
He's just
human.
an
He's just an example. Because- Sorry,
There's
Kevin.
another statement here, at no time except with prior consent should you claim to be speaking or issuing opinions on behalf of USD 503
That is correct.
in instances where there could be confusion. You must, in instances where there could be confusion, you must add a disclaimer stating that views and content are exclusively your own and not representative of USD 503. So who is
The
Who
spokesperson?
gives the prior consent? It looks like the principal and Matthew Peak. When you go down,
Tell me what page you're on.
I'm on the
It would help if they were numbered, wouldn't it? Sorry.
Second page,
second
about
page.
four paragraphs down,
Yeah.
5 paragraphs.
We're not going to have a teacher or a staff member or someone go and speak on behalf of USD 503 unless they've cleared that with the superintendent's office.
So
I
it's
mean,
with the superintendent.
Yeah, they're going to have to clear that with me.
Because you go down a couple more paragraphs. If you use the internet-based tool for any district-related group, you must notify the principal and Matt Peak,
Right.
and then it goes to you. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, and so the reason that the district-related group, the reason that is added is because we have, I think, 40-some, about 40. So let's, for example, say we have the, I don't know, Wilson football group. And so he's got a wonderful page and it's very active. If he were to leave, then we would lose all of that content unless someone else was named
As an administrator.
as an administrator on that contract. We had that a few years ago with a
Yeah.
whole bunch of really neat pictures and things that was on an account.
Well, it's
And
also
when
good to
that teacher
oversight
left-
too. If somebody's posting something, we need to have it removed.
Exactly.
We can contact Matt, to make sure we take this down or shut off comments or control what's on school district represented
So
Facebook
do
pages.
our filters filter out Twitter, Facebook, when students are on student computers, or even teachers are on their laptops in school? Are there filters to filter those out, or are they open?
I believe those are open. I believe those are
I
open.
thought it was the
Filter.
opposite.
No, I think,
No,
I
I
think-
believe those are open.
I think if you're on, so like if I get on, I have the presentation code, and so then I'm going to be able to access that. But a student that's there as a student and logged in, they're not going to be able to access that. Is that correct?
yes.
Correct.
Right.
And the guest accounts are also blocked on that.
Right.
However, any student on their phone can
Right.
access it without being on our networks at any
Right.
given moment.
If they
I
use.
just wanted that cleared up. That's good, okay.
On that same token, not that we are staff, but it's really important that us board members also know that we shouldn't be claiming to speak or issuing
Yes.
opinions on the behalf of the USD 503 board, because sometimes that gets confused. One of us will say something on social media and it's perceived that that's what the board feels, but that the board hadn't taken action on it or addressed it, and so that's just another issue that.
I think it's going to create some really good dialogue. I think, we want to communicate with our stakeholders, and that's really important, but social media has blown up so much, and that's the preferred method of so many of our parents and stakeholders for finding out information, that we need to have some conversations, and not just guidelines, but coach our teachers through the best way to use email rather than text messaging, and different ways, the appropriate ways to communicate with all stakeholders. So this will do that, we believe.
Any other discussion on that before we take action?
With that being said, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, moved and seconded to approve those social media guidelines. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. So moving to 7.5, discussion and possible action on the 22-23 accountability reports.
All right, this is on page 14 of your packet. And what this really does is just give us a focus, give the board a focus and an opportunity for you to look at all the different reports and say, oh, I'd like to hear about this. Maybe we could add that. Just an opportunity to do that so that as we move along throughout the year, we know that we're going to make sure we touch base about these things. They're all tied back to our strategic plan. And so we're keeping that the focus.
I like this. I think we started this last year, didn't we? Because
We
we
did.
always haven't. I mean, it just keeps everybody focused, knowing what's coming up.
I think probably as I look at this, probably a friendly amendment. We were going to have a work session
Yeah.
dealing with the testing data.
We were.
And that never happened. It kind of came at the end of the year, and then people were tied up with personal things and other things. And so I'm thinking that potentially we need to do that. There's some student academic data in October. Maybe that would be a good time to parlay that in with that, or
Well,
I don't know.
that's the first time it's official.
Okay.
The new data, they've got to go through and scrub it. So it was released in May, and it
Okay.
looks really pretty good with the exception of just a couple things.
Okay.
But we can't share any of that publicly until it's all been scrubbed and ready, and it will be in October.
And so I think probably expanding that discussion so that we can go back and revisit
The old and the new.
prior and the new, yeah.
We can
So
add
let's
that.
make sure that that's resolved then.
We can do that.
Any other comments on this?
And we put KISA pretty early in November. Typically, we have the visit, the big visit in the spring, and this year is our accreditation year, which is very exciting. It is also the accreditation year for 144 other districts, I think is what the email said. And so they have requested that folks start early on that, have that accreditation visit early, and so that they can come in and look through things. So when we go up next week to talk about budget for a portion of the day, we're then going to go talk about KISA as well, to kind of touch base with them. And so that accreditation visit will be coming earlier. That's why it's in November instead. So we added food service and transportation. We hadn't had that on last year's, but then people had requested that, so we put that on as well.
Where does attendance and behavioral issues fit in under academic or social emotional?
I would say that would be under that social emotional and that panorama data, because that is all kept
Yeah.
as a part of that.
A way to filter our behaviors through Panorama this year. So we've added a feature where we're going to be able to break down a lot of the behaviors. What trends are we seeing? Where are they happening? What time of day are they happening? And help us make sure we have things supervised. So we should be able to share some of that at that point.
So we can-
Attendance has been a big issue for several years, and the pandemic didn't really help that. So that's going to be a real big focus for us this year, is hopefully winding out of the pandemic and increasing those attendance rates that we saw. So we thought we'd like to share that with you too.
So we can add that to the April. That'll be a part of the
That's
April.
good.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion on that, folks.
So moved.
Second it.
Moved to approve the 22-23 accountability reports with the friendly amendments noted. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. 7.6, action to approve the proposal for cyber liability insurance.
So the last,
Unfortunately.
unfortunately. The last time when Mr. Wood was here, he said worst-case scenario was that $18,327 quote. Well, actually, that was the best-case scenario. When all of the other information came in, I think there was one group that didn't give any kind of quote at all, and the other was even higher. So obviously, we had to have it. It is required. It's going up for every group and agency, so it is not specific to just Parsons USD 503. We had to go ahead and bind that insurance so that we had it for July the 1st, so.
The key to the insurance business is being able to predict the frequency and the quantity, dollar quantity of the loss, and they can do neither of that, at least the insurance companies can on this. Because you don't know exactly when it's going to happen, how often it's going to happen, or what the loss is going to be.
So,
And so that's why the premium's so high, is because it's so unpredictable.
so if we get hacked and there's a bounty we have to pay to get back in, the insurance company would pay that bounty or whatever you want to call it?
No, the insurance company advises us what to do and so forth, but
We have enough layers of security that hopefully, that would be very difficult to do.
I
Not
mean,
gonna
this
say
did happen to the
impossible.
hospital twice
Right.
sure.
that I'm aware of. So,
And they're asking for more Bitcoin now because they're not worth near as much, you know?
that's right, okay. Okay.
Okay, any further discussion?
I'll move we approve the cyber liability insurance premiums as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve that cyber liability insurance proposal. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. 7.7, action to approve a vended contract to St. Patrick's to provide meals.
All right, so since the 22-23 school year that we don't have free meals anymore. The USDA is not doing that. We'll go back to the free and reduced lunch applications, and we'll go back to, charging for those meals, which you approved last time. St. Pat's, in prior years, had outsourced their food service, and what they have found is that they would like to go with us as a contracted vendor, which means 503 will basically be the caterer, and we will provide a meal that meets the guidelines and the criteria in order to be reimbursable. Now, we're not going to do breakfast or snacks. It'll just be lunch. St. Pat's has their own milk contract with Highland, so we're not going to do that. But we will, which means St. Pat's is going to do all their own paperwork. They're going to do their own claims. They're going to get their own reimbursement. We are simply the caterer that provides the meal, and then they pay us. So they're finishing up that contract as we speak. There were some changes. It was signed originally, and then there were some changes that we need to make. They are not in school the exact same calendar that we are, so we had to do some adjustments there. If we have school the day prior to, like we have a Tuesday where we don't have school, but they do have school. If we're there the day before, that Monday, we will provide a meal, a grab-and-go meal. We'll send it over Monday afternoon. They'll put those in the fridge, and then they'll be able to serve a grab-and-go on Tuesday. So we won't have staff coming in on days off or the days the district is closed to make those meals and provide them.
So this is part of a federal mandate that public schools shall provide meals for private schools? Is that?
No.
What is it?
It's just a vended contract. They've asked us to be their caterer and to have a vended contract with them. So we're providing the meals. We make sure that they meet all those requirements, but we aren't required to say yes. There'd be no reason we would say no, though, but.
So we can say no to anyone, or yes to anyone else?
When it comes to.
We've already been providing
the
them meals for the last
yeah.
multiple years.
Okay.
We just haven't had a contract like this, so I think it's a great idea to put a
And-
contract in place.
And we haven't because we've not, the years
They
in the
did, but-
past, we
Yeah.
haven't done it because we've
It's
not
gone down.
exchanged any money.
Yeah.
So in the last 2 years when the meals were all free, St. Pat's didn't pay us.
Right.
We got the meals, we sent them over, we did the additional paperwork, we did all of, those kinds of things. And now it's going to be different. They're going to order the meals, and however many meals they order, they're going to pay us for.
That's great.
Simple as that, so.
And that rate will be the same as what our children being charged?
Are the rates the same?
The lunch rate will be what?
The lunch rates are set by St. Pat's for their meals. So we have a rate that we will charge them per meal. St. Pat's will determine what they're going to charge for meals.
Right, well, we're going to set a rate comparable probably to what we are.
I would say it's comparable. The lunch rate is a little different for the adults because our lunch rate adult meal includes a milk, which is about 50 cents, and at St. Pat's, that's not the way they wanted it written, which is fine. So, but yes, things will be comparable, I would assume.
I guess, Yeah, I guess I'd like to see a copy of that contract as well, because I'm all for being, passing along the meals to St. Pat's, but it says one of those things with escalating food prices and everything else, that if our expenses become that and beyond what we're actually charging.
And they won't. So we've got at this point, we don't think,
So we're not on the same school calendar, are we?
no, we're not on the same school
So how does
calendar.
that work?
Okay, so on the days that we don't have school and they do, if we're in school the day before, we make a sack lunch, a cold lunch, a grab and go that they get to have. And we send it that day. Now, for example, when we're out on spring break, they're not out on spring break. Well, they're gonna have to figure out their meals.
They just send a note home and say sack lunches. That's what they do.
Or however it is that they'll do that. That'll be something that they take care of. And so that, the contract, I was hoping it would be done today. They were working on it this afternoon, Barb and Judy were.
So since it's not done, I think maybe we better wait on action then, because I've heard at least one board member that wants to see the contract before he votes. And so-
Okay, so we'll need to have it approved prior to the August 19th meeting, because we will have started to serve food. So
Yeah.
the meeting we're going to have with the rec center coming up, we'll add that to the
And
agenda.
so we're going to have a special meeting with the rec center, and so we can add that to that agenda, and then we can take action at that time.
Will that work?
Any other questions on that?
And I'll send this out, the contract, I should be able to send it out in the View this week.
As soon as it's
sure.
ready or.
Should be done,
yeah, okay. Okay, we have no 7.8, nothing to do on that, action on use of facilities, that issue went away. And so 7.9, action on lease agreement with Parsons Recreation Commission.
I'm sorry, what did you say about 7.8?
7.8, we don't have any requests to use our facilities, so that issue went away.
Oh, did it?
They
Yes.
decided to.
They're gonna use the movie
I didn't know
theater.
that.
Yeah, they decided to cut the show.
Everybody else did.
Included in the.
It was in the View.
It was in the what?
The View on Friday that they're
I
gonna,
didn't get it,
they're moving forward with the movie theater instead.
On email?
I don't think so. I thought you was off and I didn't get one and I didn't.
I was off, but I came in that morning and got it finished.
Did I get it, Amanda?
Was that this Friday? Okay.
There's a cyber problems on your stuff.
No, it must have. I'm not getting the insurance, that's for sure.
You're not getting the insurance?
Cyber insurance.
Well, it probably wouldn't be as high for
For
your
an individual,
activities.
probably not.
I don't know, I'm pretty busy. I didn't get it. Would you send it again, please? Sure can. Thank you.
Okay, 7.9, action on lease agreement with the Parsons Recreation Commission.
All right, this is on page 16 through 19 of your agenda. It's been approved by KSB, and we've incorporated the changes, some of the changes that Mr. Chrisman had wanted. And once I have approval from you, I will send it to him for signature. He was on vacation and came back a little early, but was still unable to make it this evening. So hopefully next week on Monday or Tuesday in the morning, we can all get together. That'll be done. David had a couple questions about the agreement. Do you want to?
Oh, I guess the first one I had a question on was on point 5, section 1, bullet point 5, regarding the gate receipts. Essentially, Lori told me that if it's a 503 event, 503 will take the gate receipts, whereas if it's a PRC event, those will go directly to the PRC. And then I had a question on insurance as far as liability, and it's kind of the same thing. If it's a PRC event, what insurance do they have?
And so I talked to Bob Wood this afternoon, just to double check, and he'd emailed me back later this afternoon. So they will add, PRC will add a rider, and we will add a rider, so then everyone's covered. There's very little additional, if any, additional cost to that. So it should be.
So this is only one aspect. There's the memorandum of understanding, that's a different document that has details, other details.
Well, that's the document from Gary and from the rec center.
Yes.
And we don't have to have an MOU since we have a lease, but that's up to them. He's not given me an updated MOU, so I don't know if Monday he's going to bring an MOU.
But my understanding was the MOU had, it was kind of like the devil in the details. It had
Well,
a little more detail other than $40,000 for what?
So in the lease agreement, we changed it so that it would be specific about the money, that we would provide general accounting of revenues and expenses for everything, twice a year. And he was, when I sent this to him initially, he was okay with this. He'd made some changes, some suggestions for changes, and we've talked to KSB and changed those. So
what else was in the MOU? What type of topics were in that MOU?
like who could use the field, when we could use the field, who is going to take care of the field.
That's
But
what
it
I thought.
also included the city. And so that's the thing that's not included in this lease agreement, was what the city was going to do. So in the MOU, he put, this is what he wanted the school district to do, which is very similar to what this lease is. And then here's what the expectation was for the city to do.
Well, I think everybody needs to be on the same page. I don't mind this, because this 40,000 is pretty much a fun.
That was what the district would do, what the city would do, and what the rec center would do.
What have we said about the city? Have
We
we
don't
had
have-
conversations about what the city would do?
Well, and that's none of our, that's
Right, but
not
I didn't
anything-
know if we had discussed or that they might do this, or, but, because that's kind of the first time I've heard. I
In
think
the
this is the first
MOU, in the original MOU, there were things that Gary said that the rec center would do, and things that the city would do.
okay.
And the things that we would do.
Yeah.
Well, I just don't want to do if the city is not going to do what was suggested that they would do, I don't want us to be on the hook
Right.
for what the city was going to do, because let's just face it, the rec center doesn't have any money unless we give them money through the tax revenue that we raise.
That is correct.
So it comes from the taxpayers through us anyway. So that's just my concern. It just seems like we've been going through this over and over and over again, and I don't understand.
And I was hoping Gary could be here to clarify that, but he is available Monday or Tuesday morning.
Okay.
And so we can take this and wait until Monday or Tuesday, and I can see if he's got another MOU that we could send out this week. I don't have one that's updated. He's not provided that.
Well, I'm good with that. I would like to see, I think the city needs a seat at the table too.
Right, that's
I think
just what I
so,
was going
too.
to say.
And so
For sure.
if the board would like me to, I'm very willing to meet off hours with Gary, the city, so forth, Lori, whomever from the district, just so that I kind of have a little more comfort with what's going on here, because I don't have a good comfort level yet. And so I think maybe getting the city involved for that type of joint discussion would be helpful.
And we've had those meetings in the past, but it has been months and
Okay.
months.
So maybe we
Since
should have
we've all-
another one again, and maybe we can get that scheduled this week before the board would meet.
Yeah,
And Gary
it's
is
taking
back,
too
so
long.
I can sure reach out to him to see if we can do that.
All right. And then let's table this until we figure that out.
And would you like to be a part of that meeting?
I would.
Okay.
The only day that I'm not available this week is tomorrow.
Okay.
If you could let the board know.
Okay. So not Tuesday.
Yeah, and I'd like to, obviously, I think the board would like to see a MOU as well.
Yeah.
I can request one of those from Gary.
Yeah, well, hopefully from that joint meeting will come something.
I thought that was a given, wasn't it?
Well, I think that's what we were operating
Yeah.
under, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
And he has given us an MOU and it has had multiple revisions and changes, but it was my understanding that we needed to have, in order to protect the best interest of the district, we wanted a lease agreement, because the MOU was how the city was going to interact with the rec and how the district was going to interact with the rec in regard to that project. But the lease was specific to the relationship between the rec center and the district.
The financial relationship is what's spelled out in this lease agreement.
Right.
I concur with that, but there's a lot more than the finances. There's some efforts
The 40,000, that basically pays for the employee.
One person?
It does, and so.
What about expenses such as water on the football, on the real ball fields and that?
Okay, and so that had been initially, when we had the MOU that came out most recently, which was 2 or 3 months ago, it was spelled out in there. Some of that was the city's responsibility, some was the district's. So in the MOU, it talked about sharing the cost of this employee. And so this 40,000, a portion of that is to cover the employee, but a portion of that is also for the things that they're going to need for the field, the water, the fertilizer, and other equipment. And that's why each July 1st, we will give them a list of, you paid us $20,000 and this is how we spent it. You paid us $20,000, each time. Both of those dates for their payments coincide with the dates that they get the payments from the county
Okay.
as well.
So basically, it's not 20,000 from each of us for the employee. They can use it for other things.
Well, we hired the employee, the district
Right.
hired the employee, and we're paying the employee. So a portion of this is to reimburse for that, and a portion of this would be for the additional things that we need now that we're watering, now that we're going to have someone mark it. We're going to need those supplies and equipment. So it's a combination of those things.
Well, whenever there are cost overages, probably this MOU needs to spell out who bears that. Because I have a feeling who's going to bear it
Right.
if it's not spelled out.
Mhm.
So with costs rising, it seems to me, and especially this is our first deal like this, how would you even project what the costs are going to be?
Right.
And with rising costs, they go way over. Then what?
Right. And so I think when the initial 40,000 that they gave was thinking that the district would also contribute the 40 for a total of 80, hoping that we could get everything done within there. But you're right.
Okay.
I mean, we can't predict. We don't know. We've never done it before.
That's right. Okay.
So-
All right. Well, we'll get to the bottom of this. I'm confident. Okay. So we're going to move on to 7.10 then, the executive session. So how much time would you
I
like?
would say maybe 15 max.
Okay. Does any of the board members have anything for executive session that would require any lengthy? Okay. We'll entertain a motion then for 15 minutes. Someone would make that motion.
I move we go into executive session to discuss confidential employee information at 6:41, or 6:43 for 15 minutes, ending at 6:58.
Second?
Moved and seconded to go into executive session to discuss confidential employee information pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception and the exception for employer-employee negotiations at 6:43 for 15 minutes. We'll return back to open meeting at 6:58. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And Superintendent and Assistant Superintendent will join us. Okay. Okay, we're going to need to extend again here, so what do you think?
I'd say 10 minutes.
10
max.
minutes? Okay, need a motion for 10 minutes then?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded that we re-enter executive session, same people involved, pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under coma and the exception for employment core negotiations under coma, 6:59, 10, excuse me, 7 PM for 10 minutes. Return to open meeting at 7:10. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. We are recessed for 10 minutes. Not be too far off. Okay, we are back in open session. We're moving to item 7.11, action to ratify the 22-23 negotiated agreement with the PNEA. You do have a copy of that, and as indicated, compensation changes, or the bulk of the change there. So need a motion on that?
I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded to ratify that agreement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. 7.12, action to modify the 22-23 calendar. And that was just a follow-through with the negotiated agreement. We had to modify the work schedule by a day there, consistent with that agreement. So that's what that modification relates to. So we need a motion on that.
Move that we modify the 2022-23 calendar.
Second.
Moved and seconded to modify that calendar as discussed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Action on personnel, 7.13.
Okay, so we have got recommendations for employment effective the 22-23 school year. Tish Daniels, full-time substitute teacher. Jenna Graff, full-time substitute teacher. Joan Heisey, kitchen manager. Hunter Lowe, 6th grade social studies teacher. Jamie Willie, 6th and 7th grade communications teacher. He'll go to the addendum, also recommending Devin Martinez for the high school assistant football coach, and Amber Schuster, child nutrition staff, effective August the 15th. I would recommend that you approve those recommendations for employment.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve those employment recommendations. All those in favor say aye. Okay, motion carries.
All right, and so then we've got some resignations from employment. We have Lori Griffin, Lincoln Title I aide, effective June the 30th, 2022. Darcy Martinez, 6th grade social studies teacher, effective June the 29th, 2022. Jennifer Murphy, custodian, effective July the 22nd, 2022. On the addendum, resignation from Haley Beechner, child nutrition staff, effective July the 18th, 2022. And Angela Deeker, child nutrition staff, effective July the 18th, 2022. I recommend that you approve those resignations from employment.
So moved again.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve those resignations. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 7.14, action on the supplemental assignments for 22-23.
Okay, and those are listed on, well, you got a new one. An
Yep,
updated.
whole list of supplemental assignments there was handed out right before the meeting.
Move that we approve the supplemental assignments.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve those supplemental assignments. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. No further business. We are adjourned this evening. Thank you for your
very much.
attendance.